Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Thunderous applause rolled through the grand auditorium of Morehouse School of Medicine in Atlanta as the graduating class rose to their feet. In the middle of the families and cameras and bouquets, Janelle Morris sat on the edge of her seat, clutching a small, fading handbag in her lap. Her eyes shimmered as she watched her husband, Jason Sterling, stand on the stage in his cap and gown, a confident smile on his face as the dean placed a medical degree into his hands. 5 years, Janelle thought. 5 years of dawn shifts and midnight overtime, of sore feet and aching fingers, of promises whispered over cheap coffee and unpaid bills. 5 years of holding everything together so that Jason could stand exactly where he was standing now. She looked down at her hands. The skin around her nails was rough and dry, the knuckles faintly swollen from kneading dough at the bakery before sunrise and typing at an insurance office computer until late at night. Those were the same hands that had rubbed Jason's shoulders when he came home exhausted from studying, the hands that had held him while he swore that one day he would take care of her. Beside her, Jason's mother, Gloria Sterling, sat perfectly composed in a pale lavender suit, her hair styled in an elegant chignon. "My Jason is finally a real doctor," Gloria whispered loudly to the woman on her other side, basking in the attention. Her eyes slid toward Janelle's simple dress and frayed shoes, and her mouth tightened with quiet disapproval. Janelle felt the look, but let it pass. Jason's love, she had always told herself, was enough. When the ceremony ended, Jason made his way through the crowd. He reached Gloria first and pulled her into a tight hug. "I did it, Mama," he said, voice full of pride. Gloria laughed softly and patted his back. "Of course you did, baby. I always knew you were meant for more." Janelle stepped forward, her chest warm with emotion. "Congratulations, sweetheart," she said, wrapping her arms around him. Jason allowed the hug, but his body was stiff, his eyes already wandering elsewhere. "Yeah," he said quickly. "Thanks. I made a reservation for tonight. That new high-end restaurant downtown. We should celebrate properly." He glanced at Gloria, not at Janelle. The happiness in Janelle's chest faltered for a moment, but she forced herself to smile. "Whatever you want, Jason," she said softly. "It is your night." The restaurant overlooked the glittering Atlanta skyline, all glass and polished chrome and soft jazz. Janelle smoothed the skirt of her simple navy dress and tried not to stare at the prices on the menu. The crystal glasses, the dim lights, the quiet murmur of wealthy patrons made her feel like she had walked onto a movie set where she did not quite belong. Jason had changed into a fitted designer shirt that she had never seen before. Gloria snapped photo after photo of him across the table, already planning the captions she would post for her friends. "Honey, all our effort is finally over," Janelle said, trying to start something warm, something intimate. "Now we can start the life we talked about. Maybe look for a little house." "Jason's effort, you mean?" Gloria cut in with a small, sharp smile. "My son is the one who worked day and night to become a doctor. Of course his life will be new now. He deserves the best." Janelle waited for Jason to say something, to acknowledge the years she had carried them both. He only studied the wine list. After their food was ordered and an awkward silence settled, Jason cleared his throat. His expression had changed. There was a strange detachment in his eyes, a coolness Janelle did not recognize. "Janelle," he said, reaching into his leather briefcase, "there is something I need to talk to you about." She smiled nervously. "Is it that job offer you mentioned? Did the hospital say yes?" Jason slid a thick brown envelope across the table toward her. "Just open it." Gloria sat back, lips curling with a smug, anticipating smile. Janelle's fingers shook as she broke the seal. The first line she read drained all color from her face. "Petition for dissolution of marriage." The sounds of clinking cutlery and low conversation around them vanished. "Jason," she whispered, raising her eyes to his. "This is a joke. It has to be a joke. You chose today of all days." Jason exhaled, irritation flashing across his features. "I am serious. We cannot be together anymore." Her voice cracked. "What did I do? 4 or 5 years I have." "Exactly," Jason interrupted, his tone cutting. 5 years have been enough. I am a doctor now. I have a bright future ahead of me. I need a partner who is on my level. Someone I am not embarrassed to introduce at conferences. Someone who fits the social circles I will be in." He let his gaze drift over her secondhand dress, her bare nails, the faint shadows under her eyes. Janelle, we are not on the same level anymore. I am ashamed to have such an ordinary wife. The words hit harder than any slap. Gloria leaned forward, her eyes glittering. You heard my son, she said. You should have known your place from the beginning. Be grateful he is ending this now instead of dragging you around like a burden. Think of the money you earned as charity. The tears Janelle had been holding back finally spilled over, hot and unstoppable. For a moment she could not breathe. She saw broken promises, overnight shifts, the jewelry she had sold that had belonged to her great-grandmother, all scattered at her feet like shattered glass. Then something inside her shifted. The tears stopped. She inhaled slowly, wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand, and when she lifted her head, her eyes were no longer pleading. They were cold. Enough, she said quietly. Gloria scoffed. Excuse me? I said enough, Janelle repeated, meeting Gloria's gaze without flinching. You called my sacrifices charity. You called me a burden. She let out a soft, humorless laugh. Did you think I would sit here and let you walk over me? Janelle turned to Jason. And you, Dr. Sterling, she said, emphasizing the title as if it were a joke. You say this degree is yours. You are very wrong. She stood up slowly, her chair scraping against the floor. People at nearby tables began to glance over. Janelle pointed a trembling finger at his newly framed diploma propped beside him. That degree is half mine. Every tuition payment, every textbook, every lab fee was my blood and my sleep and my body. While you were studying, I was working 2 jobs and heating up ramen noodles so we could stretch the grocery budget. You borrowed my life to buy that gown you are wearing. Jason flushed, his jaw tightening. Sit down, he hissed. You are making a scene. You already made one, she answered steadily. In front of me. In front of yourself. Jason straightened in his chair, his pride pricked. What do you want, Janelle? We have nothing. Every dollar you made went into my tuition. There is no point arguing about property. Janelle gave him a cool smile. Did you really think I was that naive? She reached into her handbag and pulled out her phone. I noticed when you started hiding your phone 6 months ago. I smelled perfume that was not mine on your shirts. I watched you suddenly afford a designer watch when I had just emptied my savings to cover your last semester. I may have been tired, Jason, but I was not blind. She dialed a number and put the phone to her ear. Attorney Whitfield? Good evening. Yes, it happened exactly the way we predicted. Jason's eyes widened. Attorney who? Janelle continued, ignoring him. Please go ahead and file everything we prepared. The divorce petition based on betrayal and material fraud. The full breakdown of 5 years of educational and living expenses. And yes, send the summons to the hospital where he begins residency next week. She listened for a moment, then nodded once. Thank you. When she ended the call, Gloria sprang up, voice shrill. You are bluffing. What damages? That money was your duty as a wife. Janelle slipped her phone back into her bag. Duty, she repeated calmly. You called it charity 5 minutes ago. Now it is duty. She reached for the divorce paperwork Jason had brought, folded it carefully, and slid it into her bag as well. I will not sign your papers. I will file my own, and before you wear that white coat again, you will answer for every dollar and every lie. That night, Janelle did not go back to the cramped apartment she shared with Jason. She took a taxi to a small studio on the west side of Atlanta, where her closest friend, Lauren Fields, lived above a nail salon. Lauren opened the door in an oversized T-shirt, hair wrapped in a scarf, and froze when she saw Janelle's swollen eyes. Where is your husband? Lauren asked slowly. He asked me for a divorce, Janelle said, her voice dull, almost detached. At dinner, right after his graduation. Lauren's face went from disbelief to fury in a heartbeat. You are joking. That man is unbelievable. Tell me everything. Janelle did, from the envelope to the insults, to Gloria's triumphant smile. Lauren paced the length of the tiny living room, fists clenched. I warned you about them, she said. They were always watching your pockets, not your heart. Janelle nodded and drew a long breath. I called a lawyer 6 months ago, she said. When I saw Jason transferring money to an account I did not recognize. I kept every receipt, every bill. Tonight was just the proof I needed. Weeks later, in a stark mediation room at the Fulton County Family Courthouse, Janelle sat beside Attorney Charles Whitfield, a calm man in a dark suit whose eyes missed nothing. Her dress was simple but pressed, her posture straight. Across the table, Jason sat beside his own attorney, looking much less composed, with Gloria whispering frantically at his shoulder. Attorney Whitfield laid out a thick stack of documents. My client rejects the divorce petition filed by Dr. Sterling, he said evenly. She has already filed her own petition on the grounds of betrayal, material fraud, and psychological abuse. We are also seeking damages in the amount of $500,000, representing 5 years of educational and living expenses paid solely by Ms. Morris. Jason's attorney flipped through the evidence: tuition transfers, receipts for books, rent, utilities. This is outrageous, Jason muttered. That was her choice. Janelle looked at him for the first time since she had entered the room. No, she said quietly. My choice was loving you. What you did with that love was your choice. After hours of tense negotiation and whispered consultations, Attorney Whitfield cleared his throat. My client is prepared to withdraw the $500,000 damages claim, he said. Jason's head snapped up. Gloria inhaled sharply in relief. Under conditions, Whitfield continued. First, Dr. Sterling will accept Ms. Morris's petition as the controlling one, with betrayal and abandonment listed as the cause. Second, neither party will make any claim on shared assets now or in the future. Third, both parties will sign a formal agreement never to contact or harass Ms. Morris or her family. Fourth, this agreement is final today, with no appeals. Jason's attorney leaned over and whispered urgently. The image of $500,000 and public scandal flickered through Jason's mind. His hand shook as he signed. When the judge's gavel finally fell and the marriage was legally over, Janelle walked out of the courthouse into the hot Georgia afternoon. She did not look back. Within a month, Janelle sold the last of her inherited jewelry, moved out of Atlanta, and disappeared. She rented a modest room in a small college town in North Carolina, enrolled in community college, and started writing late into the night. Her professors were struck by her discipline and the raw power of her essays. When one of them suggested she turn her story into a book, she hesitated, then began to write in earnest, pouring 5 years of sacrifice and one brutal night of betrayal into pages. She titled the manuscript The Dead of Dreams. Not sure anyone would read it. A regional publisher took a chance. To everyone's surprise, including Janelle's, the book struck a nerve. It spread from book clubs to morning shows, from church groups to hospital break rooms. Royalties flowed in, turning her pain into something tangible. Janelle did not buy designer clothes or a luxury car. Instead, she opened an office back in Atlanta, hired attorney Whitfield as her legal advisor, and founded the Morris Foundation, dedicated to supporting strivers who had carried others on their backs. A year after the divorce, on the 15th floor of an elite private hospital in Atlanta, Jason walked the halls with a surgeon's swagger. His white coat was immaculate, his new stethoscope gleamed, and nurses spoke his name with admiration. He had moved his mother into a high-rise penthouse, leased a black luxury sedan, and joined an expensive golf club. Credit card bills piled up in a drawer he refused to open. Divorcing Janelle was the best decision I ever made, he told his own reflection one night, adjusting his tie in a mirror framed in gold. The humble one-bedroom apartment they had once shared felt like a distant, embarrassing memory. Gloria delighted in her upgraded life, brunching with bankers' wives and judges' sisters. My son the surgeon, she would say proudly, even when Jason had only assisted on the operation she was describing. The facade held firm, until the first crack appeared. During a routine meeting with younger doctors, Jason's head suddenly felt light, the room tilting for a heartbeat. He gripped the edge of the conference table until the wave passed. Dr. Sterling, are you all right? One of the residents asked quietly. I am fine, Jason snapped. Too many late nights in surgery. A few days later, when he was eating in the hospital cafeteria, his right hand, holding a spoon, began to tremble. The tremor lasted only seconds, but it left his heart pounding. He blamed caffeine and stress. Then, in the middle of a simple appendectomy, as the lights glared and the room hummed with quiet focus, Jason felt the scalpel shake between his fingers. The tremor spread from his hand up his arm. Dr. Sterling? His assistant asked, alarmed. The patient on the table was anesthetized, vulnerable. Cold sweat trickled down Jason's back. Take over, he muttered, ripping off his gloves and stumbling out of the operating room. That evening he knocked on the office door of Dr. Leonard Grant, the hospital's chief neurologist, long after visiting hours were done. Jason had left his white coat in his car. He sat on the examination table in a plain shirt, suddenly just another patient. Tell me what has been happening, Dr. Grant said gently. Jason hesitated, then described the dizziness, the tremors, the episodes of blurred vision he had tried to ignore. Tests were ordered: blood work, neurological exams, scans. The next morning, Jason lay perfectly still inside an MRI machine, listening to the loud clanging sounds and thinking about how unfair this all felt. By late afternoon, he sat in Dr. Grant's office, staring at images of his own brain and spinal cord on a screen. "This is not a tumor," Dr. Grant said quietly. "It is a rare, aggressive autoimmune disease that is attacking your nervous system. It will progress. Without significant intervention, you may lose your vision and motor control." Jason felt the words like a punch. "There has to be a solution," he said hoarsely. "There is one option," Dr. Grant replied. "A hematopoietic stem cell transplant. It would require you to go to a specialized center in Houston, Texas. The estimated cost for the procedure, hospitalization, and initial recovery is about $1.8 million. That number echoed in Jason's mind all night. His insurance would cover part of his testing and initial care in Atlanta, but when he met with the hospital's financial office the next day, the answer was brutal. "Your policy will likely cover around $150,000, the director said, her tone sympathetic but firm. "The transplant itself and extended care are considered experimental for this condition. We cannot make guarantees." Jason tried his colleagues. "I have an incredible real estate opportunity," he lied to a fellow surgeon on the phone. "If you can help me with $500,000 now, I can triple it in a year." There was a polite laugh and a quick excuse. Other calls ended similarly. Gloria tried her social circle. "My baby needs a surgery," she sobbed into the phone, but the laughter and chatter of her lunch companions cooled quickly at the mention of 7 figures. "Zola, I wish I could help," one friend said. "The timing is just terrible. We have commitments already." The calls stopped being answered. Jason went to the hospital director, swallowing what was left of his pride. "I am one of your best surgeons," he said. "If the hospital could lend me the money, I would pay back every cent from my salary." The director shook his head regretfully. "We are a medical institution, not a bank," he said. "We cannot make personal loans on that scale, not even for you. Use what assets you have." That night, Jason looked around his penthouse, the floor to ceiling windows, the leather furniture, the gleaming kitchen. None of it was truly his. It all belonged to the bank until decades of payments were made. The sedan parked downstairs was tied to a long, expensive loan. Debt collection letters, which he had left unopened, now lay scattered across his dining table. His left eye blurred at the edges of his vision, as if someone had smudged the world with a thumb. Panic tightened his throat. His contact list was full, but when he stared at the names, none of them looked like rescue. He scrolled past colleagues, superficial friends, and socialites. His thumb stopped on a name he had not thought about in months: Lauren Fields. The last time he had seen her, she had stood between Janelle and Gloria like a shield. Shame burned his chest. Calling Lauren meant admitting every cruel word he had spoken. It meant acknowledging that the woman he had dismissed as ordinary might be the only person who had ever truly invested in him. He stared at the screen for nearly an hour. The blur in his vision worsened. Fear finally overrode pride. He pressed call. Lauren answered on the third ring. There was a long silence, then a flat voice. "Yes. Lauren, it is Jason," he said quietly. "I know this is unexpected." "Unexpected?" she repeated, sharp disbelief in her tone. "You threw my friend away like trash, and now you are calling me? What do you want?" Jason swallowed hard. "I need to know how Janelle is," he said. "I need to talk to her. It is life or death." There was another pause. "You are sick," Lauren said slowly. "Of course you are. Life has a way of circling back. Do not call me again." The line went dead. Jason stared at his phone, then typed out a message with trembling fingers. "Lauren, I know you hate me. I deserve that. But I am truly sick. I need a $1.8 million procedure. I have nothing. Janelle is the only person who ever helped me. Please, just tell me how to reach her. I will pay it back." He did not expect an answer. An hour later, his phone buzzed. Lauren's reply was short and cold. "You really think Janelle is still the woman you walked on? She has moved on. She is busy running her foundation. If you want help, do not hide behind me. Look for it yourself." Jason's fingers froze on the word foundation. He opened his laptop, eyes straining against the blur, and typed Morris Foundation Atlanta into the search bar. The first result was a sleek, professional website. At the top of the page, a large photograph showed Janelle standing in front of a modern glass building, her hair in a sharp bob, wearing a tailored navy suit. Behind her, a silver plaque read, "The Morris Foundation, broadcasting good, building the future." The site detailed scholarship programs, grants, and one initiative that made Jason's breath catch. Scholars Beacon Grant, comprehensive educational and emergency medical funding for outstanding medical students and professionals from underserved backgrounds. He clicked through article after article, each one featuring Janelle. Author of best-selling memoir, The Debt of Dreams funds next generation of doctors. From sacrifice to leadership, Janelle Morris transforms personal pain into opportunity for others. She was smiling in some photos, serious in others, always composed, always centered. Jason sat back, stunned. The woman he had once called ordinary now ran a foundation that did exactly what he needed, paying for medical procedures for doctors in desperate circumstances. The irony made him feel physically ill. After a sleepless night, he pawned his luxury watch for far less than it was worth, used the cash to pay for a taxi, and rode downtown to the address on the website. The Morris Foundation's building stood tall over a busy Atlanta street, the sun glinting off its windows. Inside, the lobby looked more like a high-end corporate office than a charity. Polished floors, modern art, young staff members moving briskly with folders and tablets. Photos of Janelle lined the walls, shaking hands with university presidents, cutting ribbons at community clinics. Jason approached the mahogany reception desk. The receptionist, a young woman in a foundation blazer, smiled. "Good morning, sir. How may I help you?" Jason cleared his throat. "I need to speak with Ms. Morris," he said. "It is an emergency." The receptionist's smile remained, but her eyes turned cautious. "Do you have an appointment?" "No," he admitted. "But this is serious. It is about my health." She hesitated and reached toward the phone, likely to call security. Before she could, a calm voice came from behind Jason. "What is the problem here?" Jason turned. Attorney Charles Whitfield stood near the private elevators, his suit impeccable, his expression unreadable. "Mr. Sterling," he said, walking closer. "I did not expect to see you again, least of all here." Jason's cheeks flushed. "You remember me," he said. "I remember that you walked away from $500,000 in damages," Whitfield replied mildly. He nodded to the receptionist. "It is fine, Mina. I will take it from here." He led Jason to a quiet waiting area. "What brings you to the Morris Foundation?" Whitfield asked, sitting across from him. Jason swallowed. "I am sick," he said. "I need a very expensive procedure. I saw your foundation's program. I thought Janelle might," he trailed off. Whitfield studied him for a moment, then picked up a brochure from the coffee table and handed it over. "The foundation has a process," he said. Jason looked down. The brochure described the Scholars Beacon Grant in detail, including eligibility requirements. "You will need to fill out an application," Whitfield said. "Submit your medical diagnosis, a full statement of your debts, and a certificate from the local social services office stating that you are a beneficiary of assistance." Jason recoiled as if he had been slapped. "A certificate of what?" "Social assistance," Whitfield repeated evenly. "This program exists for those who have nowhere else to turn. You are not here as an ex-husband. You are here as an applicant like everyone else. If you wish to proceed, go back to the front desk and request the forms." The humiliation tasted bitter, but Jason thought of his narrowing vision and trembling hands. "Fine," he said quietly. He took the forms, left the building, and spent the rest of the day sitting on a hard plastic chair in a crowded municipal office. People recognized him. Murmurs spread. When he finally stepped to the window and asked for the certificate, his voice shook. "For you?" the clerk asked, startled. "You are Dr. Sterling from the hospital." Jason stared at the scratched countertop. "Not for long," he said. "Please. I do not have time." That night he sat at his dining table under a single lamp, filling out the Morris Foundation application line by line. Name, Jason Sterling. Profession, surgeon, temporarily inactive. Debts, he listed them all. Mortgage on the penthouse, vehicle loan on the luxury sedan, credit cards, personal loans. Total, $1.3 million. Assets, none. He attached the social services certificate and the copies of his medical reports. His hand trembled slightly as he wrote, but he forced himself to be legible. The next morning, he returned to the foundation and handed the thick envelope to the receptionist. "Thank you, sir," she said politely. Our review team will look over your application. Please wait. Jason sat in the lobby for hours, watching students in white coats who were clearly scholarship recipients laugh with staff members, watching donors enter and leave through the private elevators. Just as he was beginning to believe they would send him away, Attorney Whitfield appeared again. "Ms. Morris will see you now," he said. The private elevator opened into a spacious corner office with glass walls overlooking the city. Janelle sat behind a wide wooden desk, typing on her computer. She did not look up immediately when Jason and Whitfield entered. When Whitfield said, "Ms. Morris, Mr. Sterling is here," she finished the paragraph she was working on, saved her document, and then lifted her gaze. Jason almost did not recognize her. Her hair was pulled into a sleek bun, her makeup subtle and precise, her blouse a deep emerald that gave her an air of quiet authority. The biggest change was her eyes. Once they had been filled with warmth when they rested on him. Now they were calm, focused, and distant. "Mr. Sterling," she said. She gestured to the chair opposite her desk. "Please sit down." Jason obeyed, suddenly feeling small. Whitfield remained by the window, a silent witness. Janelle picked up a file from her desk. "We have reviewed your application," she said, voice even. "Your diagnosis from Dr. Grant, your projected treatment costs in Houston, your accumulated debts. The numbers are substantial." She turned a page. "You managed to accumulate more than $1 million in consumer and housing debt in a single year. That is impressive in its own way." Jason flinched. "Janelle," he began. "I know I do not deserve your forgiveness, but—" She raised a hand. "Your apology is not part of this evaluation," she said crisply. "This foundation is a legal entity. A $1.8 million medical procedure, plus the $1.3 million needed to clear your debts, would be a $3.1 million investment. Our responsibility is to determine whether the asset being preserved justifies that investment." Jason stared at her. "Asset," he repeated numbly. "You are a trained surgeon," Janelle said. "There is value in that. It would be a waste for you to go blind and paralyzed when you could still be used to help others. But your past record in handling the sacrifices of others, mine for example, is extremely poor." He lowered his eyes. "You are right," he said quietly. "I was arrogant. I hurt you. I know that now." "Knowing it does not change the record," she replied. For a long moment, the office was silent except for the faint hum of the city outside. Jason finally asked, "So what is your decision? Are you going to reject me?" Janelle leaned back in her chair, studying him. "No," she said at last. "The application is approved." Jason's head snapped up. Relief flooded him so fast his vision swam. "Thank you," he said, voice breaking. "Thank you, Janelle. I swear I will." "Do not misunderstand," she interrupted. "This is not charity. It is not compassion. It is a grant tied to an employment contract." She nodded toward Attorney Whitfield. He stepped forward and placed a thick black folder on the desk in front of Jason. "Inside," Janelle said, "you will find an agreement assigning your debts to the Morris Foundation and a long-term service contract." Jason opened the folder. Paragraph after paragraph laid out terms and conditions in dense legal language. Janelle summarized. "The foundation will immediately pay the $1.8 million for your procedure in Houston and the remaining $1.3 million to clear your mortgage, vehicle loan, and credit cards. In exchange, the penthouse and the sedan will become property of the Morris Foundation. You and your mother will vacate the penthouse within 48 hours. The foundation will provide you with basic housing in staff quarters while you are under contract. Your professional services as a physician will belong exclusively to the Morris Foundation until our investment is repaid through your work. Based on your expected salary at one of our partner clinics, that equals 28 years of full-time service." Jason stared at the number. 28 years, he whispered. "That is practically my whole career." "You are free to refuse," Janelle said. "In that case, we withdraw the grant, and you may pursue other options for your surgery and debts, if they exist." He thought of the blurred edge of his vision, of his trembling hands, of Gloria sitting in a dark apartment when the bank took everything. There were no other options. "If I sign," he said slowly, "where will I work?" For the first time, a faint smile touched Janelle's lips. It was not warm. "At one of our service clinics in the Mississippi Delta," she said. "A small town, 8 hours from Atlanta, where people wait months to see a doctor. No private rooms, no surgical theater with your name on the door. Just you, a stethoscope, and a line of patients who have never heard of your penthouse or your car. Jason closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them again. "I will sign," he said. His hand shook as he took the pen Whitfield offered, but he signed every page. When the last signature was done, Janelle closed the folder and slid it back to Whitfield. "Our team will handle the paperwork with the bank," she said. "Your travel to Houston is booked for the day after tomorrow." 2 days later, movers from the foundation arrived at the Sterling penthouse with legal papers authorizing the seizure. Neighbors peeked through door chains as Gloria sobbed in the hallway. "This is my home," she cried. "Where am I supposed to go?" "The foundation has paid off the mortgage," one of the agents said calmly. "The property now belongs to them. You have 1 hour to pack your personal items, Miss Sterling." Jason carried boxes to a waiting taxi while his mother clung to a knockoff handbag that could not be pawned for enough money to cover a month's rent. The sedan was towed from the garage. The same night, Jason boarded a flight to Houston with a small suitcase and a file of medical records under his arm. The treatment was brutal. Weeks of chemotherapy to strip his immune system, then the transplant, then isolation. No colleagues visited. Gloria called once, sobbing about her cramped rental apartment, but he was too weak to do more than listen. Foundation staff checked on him, efficient but not intimate. He spent long days staring at the hospital's ceiling, wondering how many choices it had taken to bring him here. When Jason finally returned to Atlanta, his hands were steady. His vision was clear. But the version of himself who had strutted through hospital halls was gone. A foundation driver met him at the airport and took him, not to the penthouse, but to a modest staff residence near a training center. After a week of follow-up appointments, he was placed on a bus heading south, then onto a rattling ride down a narrow country road. The Morris Foundation Clinic in the Mississippi Delta was a small white building with peeling paint and a waiting room full of wooden chairs. There was one examination room, one stockroom, and a small office for the clinic director. No polished marble, no framed degrees on the walls, only the hum of fans and the buzz of insects just beyond the screen door. On his first day, Jason treated a farm worker with a deep cut, an elderly woman with uncontrolled diabetes, and a child with a fever so high it made his own skin prickle. He went to bed that night exhausted, frustrated, and resentful, but alive. Back in Atlanta, Gloria's life had contracted to a small, stuffy apartment above a laundromat. The friends she had once impressed with her stories of Jason's surgeries avoided her calls. She took a job washing dishes at a busy restaurant, her expensive suit jackets hanging unworn in a closet that smelled faintly of detergent. Occasionally, a television in the corner of the restaurant would play a segment about the Morris Foundation, showing Janelle cutting the ribbon on a new community health project. Gloria would turn away, her chest tight with regret, but there was nothing left to say and no one left to say it to. Jason called her once a week from the clinic, his voice flat but calm. He sent small amounts of money when he could. The foundation allowed him a modest salary on top of his debt repayment. For the first time in his life, he saw his mother as a person, not just an extension of his own image. Months passed. The days in the clinic followed a steady rhythm. Jason rose before sunrise, checked the medication inventory, and saw patients until the benches outside the door were empty. He set broken bones with improvised splints, delivered babies in the middle of the night, and sat with families who had nowhere else to go. At first, he counted the years like a prisoner scratching marks into a wall. 27 years and 8 months left. 27 years and 5 months left. But slowly, without his consent, something shifted. A little boy with asthma ran up to hug him after Jason taught his mother how to use an inhaler correctly. An elderly man brought him fresh vegetables from his garden as thanks for managing his blood pressure. A young woman cried with relief when he caught a dangerous pregnancy complication in time to get her to a larger hospital. Jason caught himself caring more about the outcome of those moments than about the brand of his watch. One hot afternoon, as Jason was finishing stitches on a teenager's cut hand, the sound of a helicopter roared overhead, startling everyone in the waiting room. Children ran to the door, pointing. The helicopter landed in the field behind the clinic, kicking up dust. Jason's heart tightened. He knew exactly who had the authority to arrive by helicopter. A few minutes later, Janelle stepped through the clinic door, wearing a light linen blouse and slacks, clipboard in hand, Attorney Whitfield at her side. The clinic director hurried toward her, shaking her hand and thanking her for new supplies. Janelle walked the narrow halls, nodding as she examined inventory logs and patient charts, asking precise questions about vaccination rates and follow-up procedures. Eventually, she stopped at the doorway of the exam room where Jason sat with a little girl who was terrified of a needle. "It is all right," Jason was saying gently. "Look at me, not at the syringe. Take a breath. I promise this will be quick, and you will be able to show your grandmother how brave you are." His hand was steady as he gave the injection. Then he handed the child a small sticker from his pocket. She sniffled, then smiled through her tears. When she hopped off the table and ran to her mother, Jason straightened and turned. Janelle was standing in the doorway, watching him. For a moment, neither of them spoke. He inclined his head. "Good afternoon, Ms. Morris," he said. "The daily report is on the director's desk." Janelle studied him. The arrogance was gone from his posture. The expensive watch was gone from his wrist. She saw a man who was tired, yes, but focused and present in a way he had never been when she was paying his tuition. "I read your patient outcomes," she said. "They are excellent. Complaints are down, follow-up rates are up, and vaccination coverage has improved." There was no warmth in her tone, but there was a kind of professional respect. "Thank you," Jason replied. He wanted to say more, that he was sorry, that he understood now, that he had finally learned what it meant to carry someone else's dreams carefully instead of using them as a stepping stone. But this was not a place for personal confessions. Not anymore. Janelle glanced at her watch. "Keep it up," she said. "The foundation notices consistent work. You have 27.5 years left on your contract. How you live those years will determine whether we review it early." She turned and walked back toward the door, her footsteps light but decisive. A few minutes later, the helicopter lifted off and disappeared into the bright Mississippi sky. Jason stepped outside and watched the aircraft shrink to a speck, then vanish. The wind it left behind rustled the cotton fields around the clinic. He thought of the first time he had told Janelle they were not on the same level, of the way she had walked out of the restaurant without looking back. Now she moved above him, literally and figuratively, while he stood on the dusty ground she had chosen for him. For a moment, bitterness rose, then faded. The little girl he had vaccinated peeked around the corner of the building, clutching her grandmother's hand. "Thank you, doctor," the grandmother called. Jason lifted a hand in acknowledgement. He turned back toward the clinic door, toward the stack of charts waiting on his desk, toward a life he had never imagined and could never fully repay, and began his next shift. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.